Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show on News Talk KFYO. There's still a early voting going on for those Texas constitutional amendments and for other items that may or may not be on your ballot. And there are 10 constitutional amendments that you have a chance to vote for or against. And joining us to talk about one of those amendments is Joe Fitzsimons, former chairman of the Texas Parks and Wildlife, also the current treasurer of the Texas Coalition for State Parks. And Joe, welcome to the show today. How are you?
Oh, great. Good to be with you.
Well, glad to have you on the show. The one that we're talking about today with you, the constitutional amendment, is Prop 5, a sales tax on sporting goods dedicated to parks, wildlife, historical agencies amendment. And this is not something necessarily new. It's just maybe a new direction where this money would go, correct?
Well, it's not a new direction as far as where the money would go, but it would be a dedication that the full amount of money goes to parks and historic sites. So you're right in saying that
it's not a new tax.
Absolutely, it is not a new tax. What it actually is truth in taxation. The sporting goods sales tax was statutorily dedicated back in 1993 by your own John Montfort, right there, the Lubbock senator, and you should be proud of that. And, of course, he's been a leader in helping us in this current effort. And what that 1993 statutory dedication did was direct the sporting goods sales tax, which is the state sales tax you pay on sporting goods, to parks and historic sites. But the way our budget works, that has to be appropriated every 2 years. Well, anybody that's ever managed property, whether it's a park, a farm, a ranch, or a home, knows that 2 years is a pretty short period of planning and time to do the work that needs to be done. So simply having to do everything on a 2-year cycle was putting our parks and historic sites behind, getting a lot of deferred maintenance. And this constitutional amendment will allow both agencies to do some long-term planning, knowing that they'll get 100% of that sporting goods sales tax.
Now, this is the way it was supposed to be set up in the first place, correct?
Well, yes, but it's a detail of budgeting that unless there's a constitutional dedication, it has to be appropriated every 2 years, and that's just the way the system works. And listen, I don't fault our legislators for having to plug some holes in the past in the budget. They've had some tough years, and remember, it was the legislators that passed this bill and got it on the ballot.
Right.
So we have to thank Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who is a real leader on this, Senator Lois Colhorst, and a real champion, John Serrier in the House, who literally walked the halls and got the votes, and eventually had a unanimous, every member of the House sign on to the resolution. So don't fault the legislature. They're
right.
the one that got us here.
Well, and we're talking about Prop 5 right now with Joe Fitzsimons here on the Chad Hasty Show. For those who maybe aren't familiar with what all goes into Texas Parks and Wildlife and the historical agencies, talk about that a little bit. Where's this? How does this money impact the job that the job that they do?
Well, it's a big number. I mean, we're talking about 40% of that sporting goods sales tax has actually gone to Parks and Wildlife and historic sites in the last 20 plus years, and $2.5 billion was collected. So my cowboy math says $1.5 billion that should have gone to Parks and Wildlife for parks and to Historic Commission for historic sites didn't get there. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you've got an $800 million maintenance and repair backlog just in the park system. So that alone would have kept that from happening. And to me, the most exciting part, I mean, obviously, maintenance and repair is number one. You got to take care of what you own first. But what's really exciting to me is now we have a long-term funding guarantee that we can look to build and develop new parks for a growing state. Because, frankly, we didn't keep up with the demand for state parks and open spaces for the last 10 million people that moved to Texas. And so we better get busy for the next 10 million.
Just Joe Fitzsimons, current treasurer of the Texas Coalition for State Parks. Appreciate your time today, and we'll see how everything turns out with the Texas constitutional amendments election.
Well, it'll turn out just right. Texas is counting on everybody to vote yes for Prop 5 on November 5.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Joe Fitzsimons here on the Chad Hasty Show, 770-5790, 1-800-687-0790. By the way, there's quite a few places you can go to see the breakdown of these constitutional amendments, and everybody has their what this means for you. Texas Tribune has, I think, a pretty good list of what you need to know about them. About the constitutional amendments. Also, the Texan.news has another good list they put together just yesterday, I believe. Brad Johnson over at the Texan News put this together, and you can go through and read about some of the different amendments. And don't go and vote until you've read through these things and you know what they mean. You know what type of impact it would have on you. And whether at least know what you're voting for when you get out and vote.